Hello everyone, a very good morning and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin by taking a look at the topics we are going to discuss today. I have chosen 9 very important articles from the Delhi edition. We have 3 articles for a detailed discussion, including few editorials and columns, and a number of articles which are prelims specific. So let's cover all these topics comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and waste your time reading the newspaper. If you're liking these initiatives, do support us by pressing the like button, share these videos with other aspirants, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at an article from the front page of the Delhi edition. Today's newspaper has multiple articles related to India-US relations. As you all know, Prime Minister Modi is on a historic visit to the United States. A lot of key initiatives have been proposed, a lot of important agreements have been signed, and in fact the Prime Minister has received a very warm welcome in the US, not just from the US government but also from the Indian community present in the US. And just a few hours ago, today morning at India's time, the Prime Minister addressed the US Congress, which itself is a very rare and a privilege and an honor which is accorded to Indian leaders when they travel abroad. So the Prime Minister has brought up a number of key areas of cooperation and key issues as far as India-US relations are concerned. So let's take a detailed look at this. Let's understand this topic in more detail, because India-US relations are said to be the defining partnership of the 21st century. In fact, this exact statement has been made repeatedly by US President Joe Biden. US President Joe Biden has always said that the partnership between the 2 largest democracies of the world, US being one of the world's oldest and largest democracies and India being the largest democracy in the world, he has often said that this partnership is going to be the defining partnership of the 21st century. Because India-US in many ways are similar. We share similar political systems, both are free, open, liberal societies, both are secular, they have a lot of diversity. So in many ways they share similar values and they are like-minded countries. Along with that, they have a very strong economic partnership, and today we even have built a strong defense and security partnership. In fact, many of the aspects of the relationship that you have today was unthinkable just 2 to 3 decades ago. Prior to 2000, India-US had a history of hostility and suspicion towards each other, especially from 1970s to early 2000. India-US had a very difficult relationship where US in particular was quite hostile to India, and India could never trust US and its intentions. So from that stage of relationship to today, where we have come, this is a remarkable and a significant achievement. A lot of changes have happened in the last 20 odd years under Prime Minister Vajpayee, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, and currently under Prime Minister Modi. So hence it becomes important to understand and examine the broad aspects of India-US relations with focus on the recent developments that have happened during the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. During this visit, along with all the pleasantries that were exchanged, along with the state honor that was extended to the Prime Minister, this being his first state visit to the US, he also addressed the US Congress, and a lot of key agreements and deals have been signed. These agreements cover critical areas like defense cooperation and defense production, critical emerging technologies, healthcare, environment and climate change, visa-related agreements, even agreements related to space exploration and cooperation. So the biggest of all these agreements happens to be the jet engine deal, which has been signed yesterday between India and US. So we need to understand the significance of these agreements, these initiatives, particularly the advances we are making in the field of technology and the cooperation between the 2 sides in the field of science and technology. So before we take a look at these new initiatives, let's first understand the broad nature of India-US relations. As I was mentioning, many experts also believe that India-US relations will indeed be the defining partnership of the 21st century. Because both of them, they share similar values, a similar vision, in order to ensure that we have a stable world in order to ensure that critical regions like the Indo-Pacific in particular is kept free and open, where international law and international rules are followed, because we do have many rule breakers in the Indo-Pacific especially, such as China. In fact, the Prime Minister made very subtle and repeated references to this, pointing out how there is an aggressive power in the Indo-Pacific, constantly threatening other countries, destabilizing the region, and not following international rules, such as the UN clause or the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So China being an aggressive expansionist power in the Indo-Pacific, it's been natural for India and US to team up together and collaborate to contain the rising aggression of China. And today India has become quite open and more open to embrace the partnership with the US to build a strong security defense partnership in order to counter any threats in the Indo-Pacific. This is what defines the close military and strategic engagement between India and US. In fact, we work with other partner countries as well, other like-minded countries such as Japan and Australia, through groupings such as the Quad or the Quadrilateral. Right? In fact, this close strategic defense partnership began in the field of counterterrorism and intelligence sharing after the 9/11 attacks. In many ways, the 9/11 attacks of 2001 that was carried out by Al-Qaeda was a turning point in global geopolitics. It changed the world order itself, and it drove US closer to India because US needed a close partner, trusted partner in the field of intelligence sharing and counterterrorism. To counter the terror outfits based out of the Afghanistan-Pakistan region, groups such as Al-Qaeda, Lashkar-e-Toiba, Taliban and the others, the US needed a reliable, trusted partner, and India was the right option for the US, as the US could no longer trust Pakistan entirely. This is what primarily drove a close defense and security-based partnership between the two countries. From 2001 onwards, India-US priority was on counter-terrorism in the region, sharing intelligence, maybe even engaging in joint operations in order to contain the terrorist threat that emanated from the Afghanistan-Pakistan belt. From here, we took the relationship forward with the signing of the historic India-US nuclear deal, which was a landmark achievement under the then Manmohan Singh government. This opened up the areas of collaboration between India and US, because US was now recognizing India's nuclear program. Just years ago, just a few years back, US had targeted India's nuclear tests, the Pokhran test in '98, and it had imposed economic and technological sanctions on India by working with many other countries. Before that, for many decades, the US had even tried to disrupt and derail India's nuclear and space program. That was the kind of hostile relationship we had at one point. So from there to signing a nuclear deal, where US recognized India's nuclear program and even agreed to help India get an exemption to join the nuclear suppliers group without signing the non-proliferation treaty. This was a huge improvement in the relations that showed the trust that both sides were placing in each other, and it showed the common objectives that both countries were having. On one hand, they were interested in countering terrorism. At the same time, they were focused on countering the rising threat from China as early as 2004-2005. Along with that, both sides have built a very strong economic relationship. The trade relationship has become critical for both the sides. This is something which has driven the relationship in the last 2 decades. In fact, for India, US happens to be one of the largest trading partners in most of the years. If you take countries, India's trading partners, such as US, China, etc., US and China are always in the top 2. Most of the years, it is either US or China, which happens to be the largest trading partner of India. So, India even has a trade surplus with the US. That is something unique with a major developed economy, which means the US is a very big export market, and Indian manufacturers, producers are heavily dependent on the US market. Plus, we have a lot of investments coming in from the US to India. And today in the tech sector, in the technology sector with regard to startups, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of close involvement between India and US, both in the public and private sector. So the trade and economic partnership is something that drives and defines the relationship. And of course, you always have the close cultural connect because of the 4 million strong Indian community in the US. The US has always been a preferred destination for Indian students, Indian professionals, especially engineers, doctors, IT professionals, etc. So you have a very strong Indian community that constitutes the Indian diaspora, forming a strong cultural bond between the two sides. So it was only natural for these two powers to come together and form a strong defense and strategic partnership because they realized that they had common objectives. Be it counterterrorism or containing the rise of China, enforcing a rules-based order, stabilizing the world, all these were common objectives between them. So it's natural for these two powers to come together and build a strong defense and strategic partnership. Today, US has become a major defense supplier to India. It has supplied critical weapon systems and defense platforms, including transport aircraft such as C-17 and C-130J Super Hercules. Today, it's become the backbone of the Indian Air Force for airlift capabilities. It has recently signed a deal to export advanced drones, even armed drones to India, such as the MQ-9 Reaper drones, which can not only be used for surveillance, but can also be used for targeted precision strikes. The US and India have built such a strong defense partnership that today US has become one of the top 3 defense suppliers to India. And US is no longer just selling defense technology to India, not just selling the defense items and the equipment. It is willing to transfer the technology itself. It's also willing to take up joint development and joint production, which will be a huge boost for India's indigenous defense industry. So that is the transformation which has happened in the India-US relations. And we have even signed the 4 foundational agreements which the US expects its close defense partners to sign. Just like its NATO allies, India also has signed the 4 foundational agreements that is expected by the US for its close defense partners to sign. So this allows the latest advanced technology from US to be transferred to India. And today, we have expanded this partnership into the field of education, healthcare, vaccine development, and more importantly, critical emerging technologies and climate change. Even though India-US had a different position at the climate change negotiations, but bilaterally we do collaborate in the field of clean and renewable energy, in the field of solar power, nuclear power, wind energy, etc. There's a lot of collaboration between India and US in the field of climate change and tackling emissions. When it comes to critical emerging technologies such as robotics, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, etc., India-US have recently formed a major initiative under which a lot of key agreements were signed during the latest visit of the Prime Minister. In fact, this is the highlight, this is the focus of the India-US relations today. We have set up a new initiative called ICET, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, which was proposed last year during the Quad Summit in Tokyo. During last year's Quad meeting, the leaders of India-US, they announced this initiative that they'll be launching a dedicated platform for collaboration in the field of critical emerging technologies. This initiative was launched this year in January 2023. It has started functioning and it promotes collaboration between the two countries in all the fields of critical emerging technologies, be it artificial intelligence, quantum computing, advanced forms of communication and telecommunication technologies, semiconductor fabrication, even space collaboration. In all these critical areas, close collaboration is being promoted through the ICET platform. So as part of the ICET initiative, both sides have identified a number of focus areas where they have already started to work together. So through ICET, the government institutions of both India and US in the public sector, and as well as the private industries, particularly startups focused on defense technology and other advanced critical emerging technologies, and as well as the academia, that is primarily the universities of both the sides. They all get a great opportunity to collaborate and work together in these critical emerging technologies. Be it public sector government institutions, universities and research institutions, and as well as the private companies and startups. they all get a great opportunity to collaborate with each other, to get involved in joint projects, to promote innovation and carry out advances in the field of critical emerging technologies. So under ICET, they have identified AI as a key platform. AI is a key focus area for both the sides. They are planning to collaborate and even come out with common standards, including the regulation of AI, which is a pressing topic today. There is a special focus for defense industrial cooperation, where American defense industries will collaborate with Indian industries to focus on joint development and joint production of defense technologies. And this will involve a component of transfer of technology as well from the US to India. Just 20 years ago, this was unthinkable, as US had placed technological sanctions on India. India was not able to procure readily available technologies, especially from US and Western countries. But today, US has lifted all these trade barriers, these export restrictions, and it is looking to transfer the technology itself to India. They are planning to set up an innovation bridge to connect the defense startups of both the countries, and they're planning to collaborate in the semiconductor domain as well, especially to scale up semiconductor fabrication and create supply chain resilience in order to reduce dependency on Chinese dominated supply chains. To reduce China's domination in the electronics and semiconductor industry, India and US are collaborating, working together, and it's a key focus area. They're also focusing on collaboration in the human spaceflight program and further space research and exploration. In fact, a very important initiative has been announced, and I'm going to discuss that as well in detail. They're collaborating in emerging fields of telecommunication, including 5G, 6G networks, and as well as Open RAN network technology. So across critical areas of technology, which is driving and powering the industrial revolution, the fourth stage of the industrial revolution, India and US have already formed a very, very strong partnership. So as part of this collaboration, India and US have signed a historic deal yesterday. A jet engine deal has been signed, through which General Electric, which is a US aerospace manufacturing firm, will be providing India's HAL with its most advanced fighter jet engine, that is the F414 engines. This will power India's next generation LCA Tejas fighter jet, which is going to become a backbone of the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy as well, along with powering the twin engine advanced medium combat aircraft, which is currently in the design stages. This will really help India to find the right power source for the future fighter jet fleet of India. Right now, the Indian Air Force is facing a critical shortage. The older squadrons are getting depleted, especially the MiG-21, MiG-29 of the Soviet origin, Russian origin, right? They're outdated and India is looking to replace them. So LCA Tejas and the proposed advanced medium combat aircraft will be the indigenous solution to that. But India's LCA Tejas program has suffered from a lot of delays and problems and constant derailment of the project. So it was GE which helped out the HAL and Aeronautical Development Agency as long back as 1980s when it transferred the F404 engines, which has powered the LCA program. Because very few countries in the world have mastered the technology of building a jet engine, a fighter jet engine. It's a very complex technology involving a lot of innovations that are required in the field of metallurgy, in the field of combustion and other key technologies, something that India was lacking. Very few powers like US, Russia, France, UK and China to an extent, only these countries have been able to master the technology of fighter jet engines. So US, being a global leader, has helped India since many years, and General Electric has played a key role in the LCA program from the beginning. As ADA and HAL were struggling with the LCA Tejas program, it was GE's F404 engines which powered the LCA program. But however, this was just a buyer-seller relationship that had been formed, where India would pay for the engines and US would simply sell the engines to India. There was no transfer of technology involved. There was no joint production, joint development. So now what US is proposing is that it is going to transfer the technology of GE F414 engines to India so we can produce them domestically. So GE will collaborate with HAL to domestically produce the engines in India, thereby giving a major boost to the defense indigenous sector in the country. This will power the future fighter jet programs of India, which would become the backbone of the Indian Air Force and as well as the Indian Navy. So that is the significance of the jet engine deal, which has been finalized. And the other important development is that India has announced that it is going to sign the Artemis Accords. The Artemis Accords is related to space exploration. Is that clear? It's an initiative of the United States that was brought out in 2020. It is a set of agreements based on 13 principles, which is going to govern space activities and space exploration in order to promote peaceful applications of outer space. The US brought out the Artemis Accords in 2020 as the US has started prioritizing deep space exploration. The US has again relaunched its human space flight program, which had been stopped many decades ago. It has set its sights to go back to the moon, place astronauts on the moon, and even it's looking to set up a permanent station as well on the lunar surface. So as part of this, NASA has started the Artemis mission. And I'm sure many of you would be following the initial test launches which are going on, where NASA is collaborating with private space agencies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, etc. So US is headed back to the outer space to deploy humans back in orbit and as well as on the lunar surface with the possibility of a permanent station which could further deep space exploration, including potential human flight to Mars. So NASA has very ambitious plans for the coming decades. So as it relaunched the Artemis mission, it came out with the Artemis Accords to lay down the ground rules, to lay down the principles that would govern peaceful exploration of outer space. These accords have been signed by 26 countries till now, which are all allies of the US, like Canada and European countries, then Australia, Japan. All these allies of the US, they have already signed the Artemis Accords. According to these principles, these 13 principles, the focus is on ensuring that outer space is not militarized according to international law. It is in line with the international standards on outer space and its utilization, and it discourages using space for military activities and military testing. It calls for cooperation between countries in matters of safety of space assets and astronauts. And it also calls for collaboration and willingness to share scientific data with each other from their respective scientific missions to outer space. So all the like-minded allies of US have already signed the accords, and now India also has announced that ISRO is going to collaborate with NASA along with India's private space industry. Recently, we have opened up the space industry for private participation, and a lot of private startups are coming up in the space domain. So India is actively looking to collaborate with NASA and as well as American space companies. And this is a very exciting domain for India, because even India is looking at a human spaceflight program, the Gaganyaan mission, right? India is preparing to put astronauts in orbit, and potentially there is an opportunity here for India-US to collaborate. The further details are not very clear as to what exactly the collaboration would be, but one thing is for sure, that India signing Artemis Accords will boost collaboration between India and US as far as space activities are concerned. It's still not clear whether India will be a part of the Artemis mission. That is not clear. It does not mean that automatically India will join the Artemis mission of NASA. But signing the Artemis Accords will definitely create a platform where India can collaborate with US and all the like-minded countries as far as space exploration is concerned. This could be a very big boost for our human space flight program as well. We might get the required technological support for the ambitious Gaganyaan mission. And also related to this, ISRO and NASA have signed an agreement to collaborate on a joint mission to the International Space Station. This is another big development coming from the US. During the Prime Minister's visit, this agreement also has been signed, where ISRO is going to collaborate with NASA for a future mission to the International Space Station. So probably ISRO might design a payload that could be deployed on the ISS for an experiment, or maybe Indian astronauts might also be sent to the International Space Station. The details are not very clear as of now, but definitely the announcement that India is going to sign at Artemis Accords and the agreement regarding International Space Station is very exciting as far as the space collaboration between the two countries are concerned. So these are the rapid advances that India, US have made, especially in the technology domain. And you see similar developments in defense, in healthcare, climate change, and people-to-people relations. So no wonder it is the defining partnership of the 21st century. All right. So this completes my detailed discussion on the Prime Minister's visit to the US, and these are some important takeaways from the visit. Of course, there will be many more articles coming up. There will be a lot of editorials and columns, and we will further analyze this topic in the coming sessions as well. Now let's move on to the next article. Let's look at this column from page number 10 that is related to higher education in the country. The writer, K. Ramachandran, is talking about a new initiative of the UGC, the University Grants Commission, to promote collaboration between the academia and the industry. When I say academia, it refers to universities. It refers to our colleges, universities and their research centers. So in order to promote greater collaboration between Indian universities and the industry, the UGC has launched a new initiative called Professor of Practice. The UGC is going to allow universities to appoint a new kind of professor, a new kind of position, faculty position has been opened up, which will allow industry experts, professionals from the industry to be appointed as faculties even if they don't have the right degrees. Generally in universities, faculty appointments are strictly based on their degrees and experience, right? Those who do not have PhDs or advanced degrees cannot be appointed as professors, especially at the elite universities, including IITs, Indian Institute of Science, etc. So now the UGC is pushing for a new faculty position called Professor of Practice or POP. Such a position exists in other countries. Many other countries which are leading in research and development, which already have very active collaboration between academia and industry, they already have such a position, where industry experts, professionals are brought from the industry, from specialized sectors and appointed as professors in various elite universities and institutions. The whole idea is to bring the academia and the industry together to promote greater opportunities for collaboration, to create entrepreneurial opportunities, to promote research, to promote intellectual property creation. So India has not experimented much with this. Of course, universities have brought experts from the industry, but usually it is on an ad hoc basis, or they would have high degrees which are needed to become a professor. But now the UGC is bringing in a new system to create this faculty position where professionals who are experts in their domain can be brought directly from the industry irrespective of their degrees that they possess, and they can be appointed as professors. So let's understand the relevance of this. Let's understand how it can bridge the gap between the professional world, the industry and the academia. See, if you look at the modern university system of education, one of the prime focus areas of universities is research and innovation. Along with completing the curriculum, along with helping the students get their degrees, their professional degrees, the focus of universities is also on research and development and innovation. So from universities, a lot of intellectual property does come out. A lot of research results in patents, and a lot of new technologies, new products are born out of academia. If you take IITs, for example, Indian Institute of Science, they single-handedly contribute to thousands of patents in the country, which eventually turns into products that could be commercialized in the market. But one drawback in India until now was that the degree of collaboration between the industry and the universities was very limited. There would be seminars and workshops, ad hoc lectures, guest lectures, but there wasn't a professional engagement. There wasn't a proper engagement where professionals from the industry could come and directly collaborate with students at the teaching level. This is something that was missing. So since innovation is a focus area for universities, it is only ideal for them as well to create and extract the economic value of the intellectual property that they are creating. See, there is an old school of thought that universities should just be learning centers. They should be only knowledge centers. Universities should not be commercialized. This is a traditional old school of thought. The new school of thought says that universities should focus on commercializing their innovations. This is where you come across a new term with regard to the universities of the present age. They are called entrepreneurial universities, where universities take up entrepreneurial initiatives to commercialize their innovations, their patents, the products, the technologies that they are developing. There is nothing wrong with this. In fact, this is good for the education system itself, for higher education. This will create the right incentive for universities to focus more on research and development. Currently, the problem is that even though a lot of intellectual property comes out of universities, commercialization has been a problem. Because students, professors with an academic background only, they will not have the required industry experience to commercialize the product. They lack the industry experience. They lack the right skills to take up entrepreneurial initiatives on their own. They do come out with a lot of innovations, a lot of intellectual property. They develop new technologies and products. The problem is they struggle in commercializing it. The old school of thought dictated that universities should only be places of learning, places of knowledge. It should not be commercialized. But today, this old school of thought no longer applies. It is a necessity for close collaboration between the industry and the universities. So these are the new age universities that you are seeing. In fact, it's a practice, a standard practice around the world. If you look at US, China, European countries, even Australia, right, Israel, in all these top knowledge hubs, there is very, very close interaction between the universities and the industry, where industry experts, professionals, directly come into the universities, teach and guide students, and they help in commercializing the research that is coming out of universities. This creates a great incentive for universities to focus on research and development, and it also creates a hub or a platform for innovation at the university level itself. It will also help the industry. The industry can find the right talent. They can find the right skills, which is currently a lacking factor in the case of India. In the case of India, a lot of graduates, postgraduates, even though they come with high degrees from best of the institutions, they lack the industry skills, right? So Indian industry often has a complaint that Indian students who are graduating, they are not skilled enough, they are not well qualified or trained to be directly employed in the industry. They have to undergo intensive training after that, right? So through such collaboration, the industry can spot the right skills, and at the same time, they can help and guide the students and the academia to commercialize their innovation. This is good for research and development in India. It creates a research ecosystem promoting innovation at the college level itself. So extracting the intellectual value, the economic value of the research output is crucial, and hence commercialization of university research is the need of the hour. So in this regard, the UGC has taken a right step. It has given a major push to this initiative. The University Grants Commission, which regulates universities in India, has provided for the creation of a new faculty position called POP, Professor of Practice. This position can be filled by an industry expert. The whole idea here is to foster innovation by bringing the industry closer to academia, by fusing the industry with the academia so that industry experts from respective fields can come and take up faculty positions, and they can not only teach, they can guide the students to commercialize their innovation and their products. Is that clear? The industry will also benefit by identifying the right skills and talent who can be hired later, and at the same time they can help the higher education sector by pushing them to focus more on research and development and boost innovation in the country. So professionals, even policy makers from the government, from public sector units, from private companies and industries can apply for the POP position, the Professor of Practice position, while they continue their regular employment. Is that clear? So they will bring the best practices from the industry and the world, from the real world, into the classroom. And there cannot be a better experience than this for the students. Right? Real world industry experience, the developments that are currently happening in the real world, in the real industry, will be brought live into the classrooms. And this will help foster research and innovation and commercialize the research output coming at the level of the universities. So that is the sole reason behind the creation of this position, the POP, or Professor of Practice. And the criteria here is that the faculty who's being appointed from the industry, they should simply have some niche experience in the industry. It could be in the field of artificial intelligence or biochemistry, or it could be in the domain of nanotechnology, doesn't matter. Depending on their specialized skills, their experience, professional work experience, they'll be appointed, not on the basis of their degrees. Doesn't matter if they don't have a PhD or other advanced degrees. All right? Mainly based on their expertise in the industry, they will be appointed into these positions to bring industry knowledge into the classrooms. So this is the initiative taken by the University Grants Commission, and this position being created is called Professor of Practice. So it is an important development as far as higher education is concerned and research and innovation is concerned. So it is an important topic, especially for your mains. Now moving on to the next article, we shall look at this editorial that refers to the escalating violence between Israel and Palestine in the last few months. Particularly in the last 1 year, there has been a wave of violence and counter-violence being committed from both the sides, and the region has become destabilized as a result of this. There are a lot of new Palestinian terror outfits that have taken shape in Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank region, and they have repeatedly carried out acts of terrorism and aggression targeting Israel. Israel is no less. Israel has repeatedly used disproportionate force targeting Palestinian outfits, even targeting Palestinian civilians, and it has scaled up the Jewish illegal settlements. It has scaled up illegal Jewish settlements in Palestinian territories, which is in contravention of international law. So this escalation from both the sides and the refusal to follow the status quo which has been recommended has led to a series of escalatory violence where a number of people have been killed on both the sides. A number of Palestinian civilians have been killed. Terror attacks have gone up. Palestinian terror groups have carried out more number of terror attacks, and Israeli forces, as always, have responded with brutal force, disproportionate force, causing very serious human rights violations. So this is the focus of the article. All right. Of course, it's a very, very big topic. Even if we have 2 hours, it's not enough to cover this topic. But at least I would like to give you a fair idea as to what exactly is happening currently as far as the Israel-Palestine issue is concerned. I hope you know that back in 1947, Israel and Palestine were supposed to be created as 2 states according to the UN 2-state solution. In order to resolve the conflict between the Jews and the Arabs, the UN proposed the 2-state solution, a separate country for the Jews called Israel, a separate country for the Arab Muslims called Palestine. So 2 countries were supposed to be born simultaneously. But Israel unilaterally declared independence and broke the UN solution. With the support of Western powers such as UK and US, Israel went ahead, broke the 2-state solution, refused to follow the UN mandate, and unilaterally declared independence, which was illegal at that point of time. That's why many countries initially did not even recognize Israel, including India. Is that clear? So in 1948, Israel unilaterally declared independence, and since Palestinian right to form their own country was being compromised, all the Arab countries here, they formed a coalition and declared war against Israel. The neighbors of Israel, led by Egypt, then Transjordan, Syria, Lebanon, with the support of all the Arab countries in the region, they launched an attack against Israel. They went to war against Israel to liberate Palestine. But Israel, being a very strong military power from the very beginning, due to the support it got, extensive support it got from Western countries, managed to defeat all the Arab powers. It went on to occupy and capture a number of Palestinian territories and shrunk the size of the Palestinian territories. So while Israel not only got its own country and expanded its territory by capturing Palestinian territories, Palestinians never got their country. Till date, Palestine is not a country, and the territory of Palestine has been slowly being annexed and consumed through illegal settlements and annexation by Israel. Later in 1967, there was another conflict, the Six-Day War between Israel and the Arab states. It was a second attempt by the Arab states to liberate Palestine, but again Israel won the conflict and defeated all the Arab powers. Today things have really changed. Today the Arab countries are no longer completely hostile to Israel. Many of them are actually seeking a friendly relationship. Egypt and Jordan have struck peace with Israel. Other countries like United Arab Emirates, then Bahrain, and many others including Saudi Arabia are reaching out to Israel, and through the Abraham Accords that was mediated by US, UAE and Bahrain have recognized Israel and set up ties with Israel as well. And apparently Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Arab region, right, already has a secret relationship with Israel, which it officially does not acknowledge. So Arab countries have largely moved on from the Palestinian issue. They no longer give complete and direct support to the Palestinian outfits. In Palestinian territories, that is Gaza Strip over here, which is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea, and Egypt's Sinai Desert over here, and the West Bank region that you see here. This is where Jerusalem, the sacred city of Jerusalem, is located. So here you have a Palestinian Authority which carries out the administration in Palestinian areas. It's located at Ramallah in West Bank. It's called the West Bank because it lies on the west bank of the Jordan River. This is the Dead Sea that you see here, right? And you have the Jordan River flowing down the Jordan River Valley. So the west bank of the Jordan River is the West Bank territory of Palestine. So Gaza Strip, on the other hand, which is another small Palestinian territory, it is largely controlled by a terrorist outfit called Hamas, which is reportedly sponsored by Iran and Syria as part of their covert war against Israel. In neighboring Lebanon, there is another outfit called Hezbollah, a radical political outfit known for carrying out attacks against Israel, which also is alleged to have been sponsored by Iran and Syria. So Iran and Syria have been involved in this covert war with Israel, where they sponsor such groups to target their respective enemies. So while the region has seen a lot of conflict, there have been many other Palestinian groups and terror outfits, including the PLO, which have engaged in terrorism to fight for their liberation or independence. That's why few countries which support the Palestinian movement, they see them as liberation outfits or revolutionary movements. But due to the mindless violence they have carried out, many of them designate Palestinian outfits as terrorist organizations. But Israel has often responded with disproportionate force against these terror attacks. It has conducted massive airstrikes and used special forces and intelligence agencies to carry out massive operations across Gaza Strip and West Bank, which has led to very serious human rights violations as well. The other serious challenge here is that Israel has slowly stepped up its illegal annexation of Palestine. It has promoted illegal Jewish settlements, particularly in West Bank, which is a Palestinian territory. West Bank is mainly supposed to be a territory for the Palestinian Arabs. But there have been few Jewish settlements. But over the last 30 years especially, Israel has been pushing more and more illegal Jewish settlers into Palestinian territory. So this leads to more confrontation between the Palestinians and the Jews. And every time there is a confrontation and an escalation, Israeli security forces intervene. They use massive force to target the Palestinians. It leads to riots and a lot of injuries and deaths as well. And very quickly the issue escalates and Palestinian outfits try to retaliate. There are many new outfits based out of West Bank as well. For example, in a region called Jenin, you have a Jenin brigade which has been formed, which comprises of young Palestinians. They see that the illegal Jewish settlements and annexation is compromising their rights, and they retaliate by forming these outfits and engage in terrorism against Israel. And Israel retaliates with massive force, and this is essentially a vicious cycle which has been created. That's why the editorial is pointing out that if the violence has to come to an end, first Israel has to stop promoting the illegal Jewish settlements. This is against international law. Is that clear? At the same time, Palestinian outfits also have to scale down their terror activities. They can't engage in terrorism in the name of fighting for liberation. So the article is urging Israel to take a step back with regard to pushing these illegal Jewish settlements, which is a direct breach of international law and a violation of the rights of Palestinians. Right? So India has maintained a very clear position on this issue, despite the challenges we have faced previously. Right? There was a point where India wanted to have ties with Israel, but because of pressure from the Arab countries here, as India was a major oil importer, right? They had leverage against India. So India was worried that if it established ties with Israel openly, the oil suppliers might act against India, which could threaten our energy security. So due to that concern, India largely stayed away from setting up ties with Israel until 1992. But however, there was a covert secret relationship that had formed between India and Israel from 1968 itself, mainly focused on counterterrorism and defense cooperation. But after 92, after the Cold War ended, also the regional dynamics had changed. The Arab countries themselves had stopped the support for Palestinian outfits and they were secretly seeking a relationship with Israel. So post 1992, India-Israel got the opportunity to build a strong relationship. We established official ties, and today Israel is a very close strategic defense partner of India. We work closely in the field of counterterrorism, share intelligence, we procure weapons and defense equipment from Israel, right? And there are many other areas of collaboration. At the same time, India has consistently maintained support for the two-state solution. Even though we have close ties with Israel, we have never given up our ideological support to the Palestinian movement. India has always supported the right of Palestinians to have their own country. In fact, many countries, right? They have a similar stand where they support the two-state solution, and India has maintained that balance. We are having a good relationship with Israel on one hand, while parallelly supporting the Palestinian rights to have their own country. Even India has often urged Israel to not focus or not push the Jewish settlements illegally. Right? This is what triggers the cycle of violence. Also, Israel is known to disrupt religious prayers and religious activities to instigate the Palestinians, which further leads to a cycle of violence where the radical elements, they conveniently take up terrorism as a tool to fight for their rights. So this vicious cycle, this cyclical violence has to stop, and the article is urging Israel and Palestine, both the sides, to take a step back. The Palestinians need to focus on de-radicalizing their youth. They need to push these outfits away from radicalism and terrorism, while Israel has to take a step back from the illegal Jewish settlements it has been pushing and reduce the disproportionate force it uses even against Palestinian civilians. This issue is of great concern for India because we have major interests in the region, right? So that is why you should be aware of the latest developments. The last 1 year has been quite concerning because the violence has escalated, which could further destabilize the region, which could affect Indian interests as well. So now we move on to the smaller articles, the Prelims Bytes section. We'll quickly go through the small articles that are relevant for your prelims. On page number 4, we have an article that refers to the Pen Monument, which has been proposed by the government of Tamil Nadu. The government of Tamil Nadu has proposed a huge monument near the Marina Beach, which will come up along the Bay of Bengal, along the coastline of Bay of Bengal. This will be a tribute to the legendary political leader from Tamil Nadu, M. Karunanidhi. So it's named after him. It's called the Dr. Kalaignar Pen Monument. It's a monument which depicts a pen designed on the structure of a veena, something that was widely regarded by Karunanidhi himself when he was alive. He was a prolific writer, someone deeply interested in music as well, right? So to pay tribute to him, to his contributions to Tamil Nadu, this monument has been proposed, the Pen Monument, which will come up along the coastline of the Bay of Bengal near the Marina Beach. But however, the proposed project had run into trouble because the proposed site would be within CRZ regulatory zone, which means it required an environmental clearance from the Environmental Ministry. As per the CRZ notification of the Environment Ministry, the Coastal Regulation Zone notification, right? construction activities and other economic activities in these CRZ zones are tightly regulated and restricted by the Environment Ministry. The coastal area, where the tidal belt, it is classified into different coastal zones, regulatory zones. And accordingly, different set of regulations are imposed. The whole idea is to protect the coastal environment, the sensitive and the vulnerable coastal marine environment. So as per the CRZ notification, different regulatory standards apply here. So for any construction and economic activity for projects falling within these zones, the regulatory norms have to be followed and required permissions have to be obtained from the Environment Ministry. So the project had run into trouble on these grounds, and now the Union Environment Ministry has granted the environmental clearance. The CRZ clearance has been provided as per the Coastal Regulation Zone guidelines. So now the project can go ahead, but a lot of conditions have been placed on the project to ensure that the project does not harm the coastal environment. All right. So just being aware of the Pen Monument, whom does it pay tribute to, and as well as the CRZ guidelines can be very important. So please take this as an exercise. I expect all of you to do this as homework, read more about the CRZ notification and identify the different zones, the regulatory zones that are identified under CRZ. And please post that in the comments as well. There are different zones where different regulatory standards apply. Just identify how many zones are there and post that in the comments. Next, on page 14, we have an article related to the current violence in Manipur. The Manipur government has invoked a unique provision of the RBI that deals with natural calamities in order to restructure loans in Manipur. Let me explain this quickly. So the Reserve Bank of India, back in 2018, it had brought out a set of regulatory norms to provide relief in disaster hit areas. Areas hit by natural disasters such as cyclones, floods, etc., where the economy has been completely disrupted, where people's livelihoods have been destroyed. You can't expect such people who are the victims of a major disaster to pay their loans on time. Is that clear? You take a cyclone affected area or an earthquake affected area or a flood affected region where people have lost their family members, their livelihood has been destroyed, infrastructure has been destroyed, right? There is a complete upside turn of events in those areas hit by a natural calamity. So here, people who have borrowed money from banks, they may not be in a position to repay their loans immediately, right? It would be unfair as well for the government, for the banks to expect timely repayments. So that's why a special provision was provided in 2018, where RBI introduced the relief measures by banks in areas affected by natural calamities directions, according to which loans in those areas can be restructured and deferred. The repayment can be deferred and the loan itself can be restructured by the banks, so that the borrowers will get some relief, they'll get some extra time to make the repayments. Now, interestingly, Manipur government has invoked these provisions since Manipur has been hit by devastating riots and ethnic clashes since the last 1 month. Due to the large-scale ethnic violence between Meiteis and Kukis and the complete destabilization of Manipur because of these riots, Manipur government has invoked these natural calamity provisions to help out the borrowers. Now this is rare because the provisions were never meant to deal with riots. It is only meant for natural calamities like natural disasters. But the Manipur government has invoked these provisions to restructure the loans in Manipur. So the people of Manipur who have taken loans, whose livelihoods have been completely turned upside down, are not forced to pay back loans immediately. Their repayment will be deferred and the loans will be restructured. So please note down that these provisions apply for all scheduled commercial banks, including small finance banks, but it does not cover RRBs. It does not extend to loans given by regional rural banks. These 2 points can be very important for prelims. There can be a prelims question. UPSC might ask, RBI has a provision for providing relief for restructuring loans in areas hit by disaster. Correct or wrong? These provisions apply only for scheduled banks and not for RRBs, right? So such statements can be asked, factual statements. So you need to be aware of these provisions. Next, on the same page, we have an article related to a grouping, an institution called the International Trade Unions Confederation, or ITUC. This article is actually related to a G20 meeting on labor standards, which was supposed to bring all the trade unions together to look after trade issues and labor issues, labor standards, worker safety, etc. So as part of the G20 meetings that India is organizing, labor issue is a major focus area. So we are coordinating with all the G20 members and inviting all trade unions to represent their interests, to talk about worker safety, worker rights, labor standards, etc. So with regard to this meeting, the ITUC has been in news, the International Trade Unions Confederation, and such organizations and bodies can be important for your prelims. The ITUC was established back in 2006 to promote the trade union movement, to bring the laborers and the trade unions together and act as a global platform to represent millions of workers, their rights, their safety, and their interests. It represents around 176 million workers in more than 161 countries. And its prime objective is to promote the workers' rights, their safety and interests, and act in their defense. It essentially engages with global bodies, including the International Labour Organization. It works closely with ILO and other specialized agencies and organs of the UN. It also works with governments and key groupings like the G20 to push for labor standards, worker rights, worker safety, ensure that the workplace is non-discriminatory, principles of equality and inclusion are followed, and human rights are protected at workplaces. That is the main focus of this platform, and it also holds a congress, a 4-year congress. All right? It is headquartered in Belgium at Brussels. These are some basic facts you should note down with regard to the International Trade Union Confederation. Next, we have an article on page 15 regarding a agreement signed between DRDO and Larsen & Toubro. L&T has a defense unit in the private sector. So this defense arm of L&T has signed a deal with DRDO to develop AIP modules, Air Independent Propulsion modules, which is critical for conventional submarines. See, when you look at submarines, there are essentially two types. You have conventional submarines powered by diesel electric engines, and they are powered through fuel cells that generate the required electricity as well for operating the submarine. And under the non-conventional category, you have your nuclear powered submarines. Now, the problem with conventional submarines is that, especially the diesel electric and fuel cell powered submarines, is that they constantly have to come to the surface every now and then to take in atmospheric oxygen in order to recharge their batteries. In a traditional conventional submarine, which is powered by a diesel electric engine and electrified through fuel cells, to recharge the batteries frequently, the submarine has to come back to the surface and take in atmospheric oxygen in order to recharge the batteries. Now, this could become a huge disadvantage for conventional submarines because it will take away their stealth features. It will make them vulnerable for detection by the enemy, thereby giving away their position. Right? So this is where a technology known as air independent propulsion comes in. Because on the other hand, nuclear powered submarines, which have unlimited source of power, they need not come back to the surface regularly to recharge the batteries. That's the advantage of a nuclear powered submarine. That's why nuclear powered submarines are considered to be more stealthier. In fact, that's why nuclear powered submarines are considered to be the final step in a nuclear triad. It is considered as the safest place to store your, at least a part of your nuclear arsenal. So you can ensure that some of your nuclear weapons can survive a first nuclear strike, and you can guarantee a second strike through your nuclear powered submarines carrying nuclear missiles. Because they are more stealthier, they can remain underwater for months together, they need not come back to the surface, thereby protecting the submarine and the strategic nuclear weapons it might be carrying on board. But conventional submarines don't have this advantage. They have to come to the surface frequently to recharge and risk detection. So to ensure that conventional submarines don't have to resurface so frequently, there is a technology called AIP, Air Independent Propulsion. This propulsion technology is a niche submarine technology. Very few countries have mastered and specialized this technology. So, under the INS Calvary class of submarines, which India has built under the Scorpene project that we procured from France, air-independent propulsion systems have been installed on the Calvary class of submarines. Under Project 75I, we procured the Scorpene diesel-electric submarines from France, and they have been inducted into the Indian Navy under INS Calvary class. So for the Calvary class, air-independent propulsion is critical. These are conventional diesel-electric submarines. France has already shared the technology with India, but to produce the air-independent propulsion modules in India, a deal has been signed between L&T and DRDO. It ensures that these submarines need not come to the surface to take in atmospheric oxygen. It will help in recharging the fuel cells and the batteries, and without resurfacing, these submarines can continue their operations for at least some period of time. It reduces the need for coming back to the surface, thereby ensuring the stealth features of the submarine. So it's a critical technology, and L&T and DRDO are working together to produce these modules for the Calvary class of submarines. Next, according to this article on page 16, the Medicines Patent Pool, or MPP, it has worked out a deal between pharmaceutical firms to produce cheaper cancer drugs in India. So, from a prelims point of view, MPP becomes very, very important. Medicines Patent Pool. It's actually a global body. So, it becomes a very important topic for your prelims under international relations. The MPP, or Medicines Patent Pool, it is a UN-backed body. It's a UN-backed public health organization which tries to bring governments, UN bodies, and pharmaceutical firms together to ensure that expensive patented drugs, which are life-saving drugs, can be made affordable by producing generic versions of the patented drugs. That is the sole purpose of this body, the Medicines Patent Pool. Right? Because many life-saving medicines and drugs are very, very expensive, unaffordable for the common man. Especially in developing countries, in poor countries. Even the middle class and upper class may not be able to afford some of the life-saving medicines, especially with regard to cancer treatment. Even though the treatment is available, people can't afford them because of the price. Because these are patented products. Usually the patents are held by Western pharmaceutical firms. So to help out the middle income countries, the developing and poor and underdeveloped nations, this platform has been created, which is supported by the UN. The UN supports this organization, and it negotiates with the pharmaceutical firms, governments, and the concerned institutions to work out a licensing arrangement so that the patented drug can be produced, generic versions of the patented drug can be produced so that the life-saving medicines can be made accessible and affordable. Essentially, cheaper versions of the same patented drug can be produced that could save lives in developing and underdeveloped countries. So that's why you should know about MPP, Medicines Patent Pool. What does it do? Alright, it is backed by the UN, and it helps in bringing out generic medicines of patented drugs in order to save lives. Coming to the last article, I'm sure all of you would have followed a recent development in the Atlantic Ocean. Right? You guys would have heard about the Titanic, the legendary ship which had unfortunately sunk. And the shipwreck of the Titanic in itself had become a tourist exploratory site. There were few expeditions that would be organized to the bottom of the seabed of the Atlantic to go and examine the shipwreck of the Titanic. So tourists and adventurers would prefer to take this trip, which was very expensive and very risky as well. Recently, a submersible vessel carrying few explorers and adventurers, unfortunately, it sank, it suffered an accident, and as we just got to know, the submersible vessel known as Titan has suffered a very serious accident and people on board have been killed. It contained a British entrepreneur, a British billionaire who had helped India to procure cheetahs from Africa. It contained a couple of Pakistanis as well, Pakistani UK billionaires and few researchers, etc. So all 5 people on board have lost their lives, unfortunately, because of this accident involving a submersible vessel. Now this accident actually has lessons for India. That's what the article is focusing upon. Because India also has a similar exploratory mission known as the Deep Ocean Mission to study the depths of the seafloor and the ocean bed, which is being led by the National Institute of Ocean Technology, NIOT. It's based out of Chennai, and NIOT is building India's first indigenous submersible vessel. You can see that in the image over here. This spherical shaped vessel is known as Matsya 6000. Matsya meaning fish, which thrives underwater. 6000 refers to the depth to which we plan to reach through the submersible vessel. Deep ocean exploration has gained a lot of traction, especially big powers like China, US, India, Japan, etc. They are all prioritizing deep ocean exploration, not just for scientific advancement, but also to identify the resources present on the seabed and start exploiting the resources present on the seabed. So deep ocean missions today have a strategic value and an economic value attached to it. So we are competing with US and China here, and India is also developing its first submersible vessel known as Matsya 6000. By next year, the trials will be conducted, and by 2025, Matsya 6000 will be deployed to a fleet of 6,000 meters below the surface to carry out exploration at the depths of the Indian Ocean. All right, this is part of the deep ocean mission of India, and this is where India can draw lessons regarding the structure and the design of the submersible vessel. Because the Titan submersible vessel, which has suffered the accident and crashed, it was made up of carbon fiber and titanium. It was a mix of carbon fiber and titanium. This is never a good practice. In fact, there were safety concerns regarding the Titan because of this, the structure and the material which had been used. Whereas Matsya 6000 of India is entirely built out of a titanium hull. Because titanium is extremely strong, stronger than steel, but lighter than steel, which makes it perfect for submersible operations. So India has gone for a complete titanium hull. So structurally it is very sound and strong, and the sphere, the spherical shape has to be absolutely perfect. It should be error free. Even a minute defect in the spherical shape, even an error of 1 mm can be devastating, because at these depths of 5,000, 6,000 feet below, the water pressure from the water column will be tremendous. It will be like a bomb. Under that pressure, if it is not designed, the spherical hull will simply explode like a bomb, killing everyone on board. India is planning to send 3 people on board, 3 researchers on board to carry out this deep exploration mission. So it is critical for us to ensure that while we are fabricating the hull, it should be absolutely spherical, because the pressure gets evenly distributed. Even a slight defect in the shape, even a small inaccuracy can blow up the vessel itself. So, and we also have to keep in mind the redundancy we have to build in. There should be enough survivable oxygen lasting at least 3-4 days. In the case of Titan, at least 96 hours oxygen supply was available, right? So similarly, if an accident were to happen, the crew should be able to survive for at least 3-4 days before rescue teams can reach them. And there should be a detectable location pointer. So what India is planning is, the NIOT has designed a flotation device. If the Matsya 6000 suffers an accident, this flotation sensor will be released. It will float to the top. It will come to the top and it will start beaming the location of the hull where it has crashed. So rescuers can immediately reach the correct location. In the current accident, in the case of Titan, right, all the agencies who were searching, they had to search across a massive area to identify where the vessel might have crashed. If there was a proper identifier, location identifier, it could have saved precious time, correct? But unfortunately, the Titan accident was very different. It was a complete rupture of the vessel itself. So there was no way anyone could have survived. But if there is a a failure and if people are still surviving on board, there should be enough redundancies built into the system. Just like you take precautionary measures while designing a space capsule, similarly, similar measures have to be taken for the deep ocean mission as well, according to the article. So knowing about Matsya 6000, the material that goes into it, the importance of maintaining a perfect spherical shape, right? All of this is very, very important from a prelims point of view. So with this, I complete my discussion for today. Please take up the mains practice questions for your answer writing. Ensure you write the answers, post the answers on the answer writing portal, for which link has been given in the description. So as we end the session, don't forget we have a quiz on the Telegram channel. Please head to the Telegram channel and take these questions for practice. So that is it from my side. I hope you liked the session. Do let me know how it went in the comments and also subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.